taking care of funding a dedicated National Bereavement Service helpline for the relatives of customers that have passed on. This new helpline is offered as part of our commitment to supporting our customers and their families whenever help is needed.
The National Bereavement Service provides information and advice to people preparing for future incapacity and death, as well as for people who are already bereaved. And this is delivered through our dedicated helpline, email, and web chats. And we focus mainly on the practical tasks that confront newly bereaved people. This covers a wide range of topics, such as understanding the difference between a medical certificate of cause of death and a certified copy of the death certificate, or explaining the reasons for a coroner's investigation and how to prepare for an inquest, and then perhaps to less complex things such as finding a reputable funeral director. Am I eligible for the funeral benefits expenses payment, or perhaps help with understanding probate and how to apply for probate if there is no will. We founded the service actually nearly 8 years ago now, in 2014. I was working in the funeral industry at the time, and it was really evident there wasn't an organisation in the UK that provided both impartial and ethical guidance what to do when somebody has died, without there being an ulterior motive on that call to try and sell something to a very vulnerable person who is grieving. So we started very simply by offering a free phone 0800 number for anybody to call who is bereaved. We provided information explaining in clear, simple language what people's options are. Common issues are both financial and emotional. The two are very much intertwined. I think one of the key financial issues is actually paying for a funeral, sadly. So where the deceased person has not left provision to pay for the funeral, this often leaves families devastated because they feel they are unable to give their loved one the send-off that they deserve. We've also seen an increase in calls from older people, especially pensioners, who are not eligible for funeral funding from the government to help pay for their loved one's funeral, and they only have the state pension to live on. So this causes additional hardship as well as heartache. Another common issue is who can register the death and who is responsible for dealing with the estate. So by the estate we mean property, money, etc. We've also seen, as I mentioned earlier, marked increase in calls from people who feel they need emotional support or counselling, and quite often the free services they're trying to access have very long waiting times. And frequently it's just simple reassurance and explanation is all that's needed to help people understand that grief is tough. So when an incoming call is received, the advisor, one of our team, would simply ask how they can help and give the caller time to explain. Our job is to listen, and that's all we're there to do. And once we've listened and the caller's explained their story or their circumstances, we then can give our advice and information. If the call relates, however, to practical guidance and advice, so say somebody needs help with legal administration, they don't know what to do, they don't know if there's a will, they don't know if they need to go through probate, we will ask a little about the person who has died, their relationship with them, and whether there is a will. So those are the two most important things. So if there is no will, that means the person in legalese has died intestate, so they've died without a will. Questions will then need to be asked whether they are legally able to deal with the estate, which is why it is so important to make a will. And it's something we all tend to put off, but it's a really, really important document to make things easier for your family when you die. So from then on, the team will explain how probate is applied for and whether they are able to deal with this themselves. We call it DIY, and we will direct them to the appropriate forms. We'll help them complete the forms if they feel they are capable of doing it themselves. If they feel it's a little overwhelming, a little complex, we will direct them to the Law Society website to search for a solicitor, or we'll introduce them to a trusted and vetted solicitor that we know. So it's entirely, but the most important thing is that we will give the caller options and explain in clear, simple language. Wherever possible, we will keep the details of the callers anonymous when offering support and guidance. Where there is an ongoing service needed, such as the requirement for legal help or support, or they require a follow-up call, then we will ask for consent and ask the caller to provide contact details, but only if that's a necessity. Our aim and the reason why we exist, our purpose, is to give impartial, ethical guidance and advice, which is the reason why we started the organisation back in 2014. So our aim is to always to enable a caller to explore their options and choose the course of action that is best suited to their circumstances. All we are doing is giving information and guidance. It's not something we go through every day. So when we do, and we're grieving and our emotions are heightened, you know, it's easy to make rash decisions or think, actually, we need to spend £10,000 on a funeral, we need to rush out and get a solicitor. You know, it's easy to do that. So our pure aim is to give guidance and advice, and for the caller to choose what's best for them. Phone calls to the service are not time limited, as I mentioned, and the NBS bereavement advisors have neither sales targets nor incentives. So there's no incentive for any of our team to signpost to a particular firm or for any particular services. If I was to summarise, I would say we are an excellent first stop for information and advice. We are knowledgeable about all the common issues that arise from families affected by death, but certainly for the first step, when somebody has died who is close to you, the NBS will provide information, guidance in an impartial and practical manner.